Hello, I'm Shannon Gibson, and I'm the Dean of the O'Malley College of Business, and I'm thrilled to have you here for an executive panel on opportunities and the insurance and risk management piece of the aviation aerospace industry. We are thrilled today to have four wonderful guest speakers to share their background, their experiences, and their thoughts on this industry and its opportunities with us. First, we have Ms. Brenna Gore, an account manager with AssuredPartners. We have Stacy Therian, Vice President, Workers' Compensation of STARR Companies. Lee Garvin, Director, Risk Management and Workers' Compensation for JetBlue Airways. And Christopher O'Gwen, CEO, Fair American Insurance and Reinsurance Companies. Since there are so many of us here today, my recommendation is that you switch your view to the speaker view so that the individual speaking is the one you are focused on. And I ask that as the audience, you please keep your microphone on mute until we get to the end, in which case we'll take questions. We all know how to raise our hands in this environment now or type them into chat. So that'll be our plan or our approach. So without further ado, I would like to hand the floor over to Mr. Chris O'Gwen, who will be moderating this event. Chris?
Dr. Gibson, thank you for having us, and thank you everybody who's attending today. We hope this will be an informative hour, and we hope to make it interactive with your questions, which will really drive the bulk of our time today. The industry is a tremendous industry, and a little known fact, right? If for those of you who don't know, the David O'Malley College of Business is named after David O'Malley, who is an insurance executive, retired, now currently on the board. So it's very much part of the university and particularly the College of Business. So we hope to share some of our experiences today. And with that, I'll kind of go to questions that we've got prepared to get the conversation going. But we will have ample time for everybody to ask their own questions today. So the first question that I'll pose to the group is, what drew you to the insurance industry? So Lee, do you want to start us off with with what drew you in?
Sure. And first of all, thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time to spend with us tonight. I know oftentimes when you think of insurance, you don't think of exciting. But part of the concept here, what we're trying to talk about here is you're in college, you're trying to figure out what you want to do with life. There's a whole host of opportunities for you guys, for students out there once they graduate. And, the idea is to try and show you some of these different areas and how you can potentially be successful in it. And as Chris just mentioned, to be able to put your name on the side of a building at a university, it takes a fair amount of change to do that. So that you can be quite successful in this industry with with the right attitude and the ability to go along with it. So what drew me here is I didn't start going into insurance. It's one of those fields that's a lot of people fall into and wind up being quite successful in. I originally I graduated from Embry-Riddle. I was a pilot. Flew for a couple of years, decided that that's not what I wanted to do with life, tried to figure out what I could do, wound up coming back to Embry-Riddle at a college fair, ran into a couple of aviation insurance companies because I still loved aviation and wanted to stay in it, and kind of fell into a spot where I was selling the insurance on behalf of insurance companies, with the philosophy at the time was it's easier for an aviator, teach an aviator insurance than insurance to an aviator. I think I got that backwards, but ultimately wound up going from the sell side to the buy side at JetBlue.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Lee. Brenna, so you're probably the newest, on our panel to the industry. So what drew you into the industry?
Yes, I am new. So I came to the aerospace side last January. So I've been in for a little under a year, but I've been in insurance since 2019. So, and I think Lee said it best, a lot of people in this industry really do just fall into it. So my husband and I moved to Columbia, and frankly, I just really needed a job. So I was looking for one, but what really drew me to the industry is there's so much stability here. You know, like I'm sure y'all are about to graduate in the world of COVID. There was something, I was in insurance before this on the life and health side and then moved over to this side. And at no point was I worried about losing my job or anything of that nature. So that for me was just comforting. And there's just a lot about the industry. It's very structured. Like you come in and, you know, you have your rules and your parameters, but every day is different. You're talking to different people and you're really getting to build these relationships. And that's what is the best part for me, is just you get to meet these people and you're working with them and you get to know them so intimately in a very small, I think I would say insurance is pretty small to begin with, but even on the aviation side, everyone knows everyone. And it's almost, there's a kind of like a family environment. It's like people have been working together for 40 plus years. And that just really kind of drew me. And I really loved that environment and the community that it had. So those were the things that really kind of drew me in, but has kept me this far in my whole 2 years of being here.
Great, thank you. And Stacy, what's been your experience and how did you get drawn in?
Yeah, so like both Lee and Brenna, insurance was not my plan. I was actually an exercise and sports science major with the intent to go to physical therapy school. And after doing an internship, I decided that physical therapy wasn't the career path I wanted to take. So I started looking for something different. I heard about an opening at AIG Aviation, which is an insurance company, and I was really hesitant to apply because I'd never even taken a business course in college. But after doing some research, like Brenna said, I realized that insurance was very stable and has a consistent need for talent. And there was a friend that actually told me about the job, and once she told me about the responsibilities and more about the company and people she worked with, I knew I'd be a good fit. Being an insurance underwriter takes an organized, detail-oriented person who also has good people skills. It's all about relationship building. And the fact that my strengths lined up with what was needed is what really drew me to the insurance industry. And on top of that, it being aviation insurance made it more appealing. To this day, when I tell people that I work as an insurance underwriter, I kind of get a look that, oh, that's kind of boring. But then I tell them, well, I'm in aviation insurance, and they're asking all kinds of questions, and it's much more exciting.
Right, great, thank you. So now we'll pivot to, we understand how everybody's come in, and the stories are all very different, which is very common throughout the industry, right? People's way into the insurance world is usually not direct, although more and more people are learning about it as a career opportunity, and that's kind of what we hope to present today. But I think the next question we'll try to address is, what has been some of the most intriguing aspects of specifically the aviation insurance industry for each of you? Lee, do you want to take that one? And what's been something that you found intriguing, or some of the different things you find intriguing about our industry?
Sure. And Chris, also being in the insurance field, we're not going to let you get out of this without telling how you got where you are either. So you can do that either now or later.
I say I'll come back around at the end of this one.
Okay. So I guess really what gets me excited about the job, and again, we have folks on all sides of the equation here for the industry. The aviation is great just because I have that experience, that background, and it's the overall arching theme of everything that we're doing. But what really gets me excited when I boil it down is the relationships and being able to help someone. On the company side, I get calls all the time from whether it is, our employees, we call them crew members at JetBlue, injured crew members who have a problem. How do I deal with this? How do I work my way around it? And in some cases, If it's a workers' comp or which is an injured, someone who got hurt at work, it's how do they work through this process because it's very regulated, and how can we help them get to either the doctor that they need, or help them within the organization, help them get the resources available to them. There is nothing better getting a call from someone who is in need, helping them out, and then having them come back to you and say, wow, thank you, when I really needed this, you were there for me. That is a big piece, and we get that from injured crew members, or we're an operations company, someone gets into a car accident, or dings an aircraft or something, anything could happen along the way. And these folks' job is not to deal with insurance companies and claims processes and what do I do next. Their job is to move passengers, give great customer service. That's the stuff that I want to reach into their lives and say, we'll take that. That's my problem. You go and make the company money. You do what you're supposed to do. Let us take care of that for you. And I kind of view it as solution. How am I leveraging my relationships to provide solutions and answers for people when they need it, whether it's a contract, we really need to use this person, this business partner to get this done. Okay, let's figure out how to make that work. To an injured crew member or someone damaged a piece of equipment. It's really very widespread.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Brenna, as somebody who's newer to the industry, what have you found intriguing? And I find it particularly interesting, you've switched from the life and health side to the aviation side recently. So what's been the most intriguing aspect of that?
Well, yeah, like you said, I had no aviation experience coming into this. So similar to Stacy, like I said, I saw a job and it said AssuredPartners Aerospace, and I was like, oh, like I just didn't really know what all that was about. So it opened just a whole new world to me that I didn't know. But I really think, kind of piggybacking off of what Lee said, you're there to help people. Like if you think, what's the absolute worst case scenario? Someone passes away in a crash. You get to try to make sure that someone's business is protected, that their family is protected, and you're really providing peace of mind. So I think that we're kind of in a world too where you paint insurance as like this, this like big bad thing, but really like on this side, you get to see, no, I can use my knowledge of the industry and what Lee said, my relationships with the underwriters and with the clients to say, okay, you want to protect your business. Let me see what I can do to make sure that, y'all are secure, that, kids can still go to college and everything. So it really is just, like Lee said, it's helping people and it's really learning. It's kind of almost like a puzzle, which like I find really intriguing. It's every client is different and every need is different. So you're not just pushing like, oh, I need to give you car insurance because you need car insurance. It's okay. Like, let me walk through your business. Let me see, okay, you own a hangar or you have pilots that you employ. What can I do to make sure that y'all are protected and how it fits perfectly with your business? And that's what I really like. And it really comes down to every day is different, but everything you're doing is benefiting your client and making sure that they are in the best situation possible.
Great, no, thank you. So Stacy, same question, but obviously you come at it from the workers' comp side, which is similar to some of the stuff that Lee does. What's been the most intriguing aspect of your career?
So honestly, being in the aviation sector of insurance has been the most intriguing. It's an ever-evolving industry, and I've really enjoyed learning the ins and outs of aviation while doing something I'm good at, which is analyzing risk. I'm a numbers person, and as an insurance writer, I review the operations of a risk along with their prior experience to determine an insurance program and premium. And sometimes we do have to get creative with things, and insurance is there to provide solution to a risk. And like Lee said, it's rewarding to be part of that solution. Another thing I've loved is the relationship building aspect of my career. The aviation sector of insurance is a very tight-knit community. And not only do we get to know our brokers very well, but also our insureds and our competitors. I've met some fascinating people and have built amazing relationships.
No, that's great. So I'm going to take this opportunity just for the audience. Now would be a good time to write in your questions, because we're going to get to that portion here shortly. So if you had something or think of something, this would be the time to start to put that down. And then as Lee wanted me dragged into the conversation, I'll take the opportunity to kind of answer some of this last question for myself. So I think many people know I'm a 96 grad. I was an air science student here. And halfway through undergrad, I decided I didn't want to be an airline pilot anymore, and decided I wanted to get into the insurance world and added a business minor at the College of Business. What intrigued me about the industry, and it has far exceeded all of the things that I thought, about it, was it's the ultimate opportunity to be a voyeur inside of a chosen industry. And so the insurance industry is very specialized. So we're talking today about aviation, but you take any industry sector and it's very much a verticalized industry. So the marine industry has a vertical that's very specialized. The medical malpractice industry is very specialized. What it allows you inside of those specialties is to see all of the customers within that sector. So for me, I was very interested in seeing the inner workings of not just United Airlines, but I wanted to see inside of JetBlue and Delta and American. And I also wanted to see the inner workings of Boeing, but also see inside of Airbus. And as many of you know, in the aviation industry, if you're somebody who's selling products into one of the big manufacturers in particular, you're very often not allowed to be participating in that process with the other manufacturer, because they're just very strict rules imposed by the various competitive organizations. So, the insurance is one of those places where, I've been to Boeing's factory, I've been to Airbus's factory, I've been to JetBlue's facilities and United and Delta. That was something that the industry afforded that, very few other careers would allow you to get inside of all of the organizations inside of the aviation world. And that to me was the most intriguing. And as I look back at it, it's still one of the most fascinating things of my career to say that, you've literally been inside and met with the senior management of all of those organizations. So that was one. The other is the community that the industry, and it's been talked about a little bit, but this industry is very, very small. Even though it's a big industry, you end up knowing everybody. A lot of my close personal friends are people, from the business. Every one of the other panelists here, their organizations have either been my customer, my business partner, or a competitor. And in some cases, some of these individuals have been all of those things across my career. And that's something that's very, very unique that you don't get to see in a lot of other industries. And so, to me, it's one of those very unique job opportunities that allows you to kind of work in a competitive industry that allows you a lot of insight to the broader industry that we've all loved, and allow you to develop relationships with customers, business partners, and competitors. That's very, very collegial, and that's pretty special. And as you look back at a career, it's nice to be able to have all those friends in all those different places at this point. So hopefully that's a little light on some major topics, but now we'd really like to hear your questions, and we're happy to answer and talk on any topics. So Dr. Gibson, do you want to give us the first question?
I will. This question comes from Hunter Barnett, and it says, with the aviation industry being a global industry, what are some of the main differences that the U.S. does versus other nations in regard to insurance, good and bad, and does it make it harder to operate internationally?
Sure. So I think I'm going to hand that question to Lee, right? You guys deal with that on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks. Appreciate that. I think also something that if we get a chance to do is kind of explain the different jobs and market sections that we sit in between Stacy, Brenna, and myself, why there's three folks from different areas and what they do versus what I do and what I can't do. And so as the client, I can't just go directly to Stacy and buy my insurance. I need to have a middle person, and that's Brenna, who is also an expert on a very broad band of topics. So as a client, I might come to have a problem. If she is my representative, I'm going to ask her, I'm like, hey, I need to give this, I need to buy this type of insurance. I don't even know what it is. So Brenna is that expert to be able to say, this is what you need, Lee. Here's why you need it. Let me see that contract. She's reviewing that and then finding me the market to go to that and marketing that to say, I want to get you the best price. And that's where Stacy hops in to price that, find out what it is that's going on. She looks into my account and then comes up with that pricing. So that kind of just a quick level set of all the three of us up here, if that helps understand why the three of us are here. But back to your question about, so the one thing that's great about the aviation market is our limits of insurance are so high. We deal with billion-dollar liability limits. To do that, you can't just go to Geico and have Geico write a billion-dollar policy. You need to get a whole bunch of different insurers involved with that. And because of that, there are, in a lot of areas, just one wide open marketplace, usually the London market or all these different markets that you can go to or your broker will go to pull that together for you. So it does make the world a smaller place in that regard. Where you start getting into some very interesting areas, and I'll let Stacy talk about the workers' comp, which is very specific. But also when you start dealing with some small foreign countries or small policies in a foreign country, like I literally spent a month and a half trying to find an insurance policy for a tow bar in Costa Rica. It was a $2,000 piece of equipment that it was driving me nuts. I had to find a local insurer in Costa Rica to buy a policy that would have cost me actually, it was a lot of money, which was weird because I was like, I just won't insure it. We wound up giving the tow bar away to our business partner because it cost $1,500 to insure a $2,000 piece of equipment. But yeah, you can find some unique situations in some small areas in the world. Most of our policies are worldwide where you do not need those local policies. When you start getting into the property space, that's where you need local individual policies. And it's a great learning experience that you come up with. And as Brenna said, every day is a different day. You don't know what's going to happen. I'll walk in the door, I'll have nothing on my calendar, and all of a sudden I'm calling my wife and saying I'll be home at 10 tonight. So yeah, it's both is and isn't.
Yeah, great, thank you, Lee. So Dr. Gibson, we have any more questions?
Well, I was just going to ask Stacy, Brenna, or you, Chris, did any of you want to speak to what it's like on the international side before we move to the next question?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the international side. Lee alluded to it. So the aviation insurance market, but the broader insurance market as well, is a very international market, right? So there's a market here in the U.S. and then there's a very unique market called Lloyd's of London in London, which is the oldest insurance market in the world. And that's a collection of people like myself and Stacy, who are underwriters by background and work for underwriting organizations who provide the insurance. In Lloyd's of London, they all sit in the same building. and the broker, so Brenna in this case, would go around and get a little bit of the deal done with each of the underwriters in the market. And that's a pretty unique way of things getting done. And it was done a long time ago, specifically started in the marine market because the ships were transporting goods across the ocean, and no one ship owner could withstand the loss of all the cargo. So they essentially did something what's called quota share it. And that's a term still used in the industry today. The world is a very small place. If you look at, as I'm sure Lee can tell us, right, JetBlue's policy probably has 15 plus insurers from the United States and all throughout Europe and maybe even Asia. And that's not uncommon when you get into big corporate insurance today. So it's a big world, but it's getting smaller by the day, and simple policies, in any industry might have insurers from multiple countries around the world.
Okay, so here comes the next question. And I think it's a great one because it reflects something that everyone is concerned with or thinking about as we go forward. And that's the culture of the organizations in which we work. And I'm always talking with students about the importance of finding a good person-organization fit, right? Finding a place to work that is unique and suits and aligns with your values. So how would you describe the work culture in insurance versus other aspects of the aviation or aerospace industry that you might be familiar with, either through your own experiences or from interacting with your colleagues?
Sure. So Stacy, do you want to take a stab at that question?
I can try. I don't really know much about the other cultures, but as far as my company, and we've got a great culture here. And one thing my boss always says is that at a minimum, you need to like what you do, if not love what you do. And I personally enjoy coming to work every day. We've got a great group of people. It's a very collaborative work style. If I don't know the answer to something, I can walk out my office and talk to somebody, and we can come up with something to create a solution together.
No, that's great. I would agree. If you think about the industry in general, one of the very interesting things about the insurance industry is that it is here to serve the customer, and it serves the customer usually on their worst day, right? So something bad has happened to the customer when they need their insurance, and so the people that get involved in the industry understand that and tend to operate from that kind of perspective. So again, it's a very collegial environment. I know a lot of the organizations in the industry, and they're all very similar in that they're very collegial, right? It's a team-centered approach in almost every organization, right? It's not an industry where one person makes all the decisions. It tends to be very collaborative. And then the industry, again, is small enough where it's collegial because everybody knows each other. So I think you'll find a very good culture. I think there's a very good work-life balance, which I know is an important topic these days. It's not the type of industry where you're working 16-hour days every day. You do it sometimes, or obviously it's needed at points, but it's not like some other industries where you see kind of major burnout after a few years. It's a place where people tend to spend an entire career. And I think the other very interesting thing in our industry is a lot of the aviation insurance companies have employees that have been there for 40 years, right? And that's unusual to see organizations keep people that long. So when that happens, that means it's probably a pretty good place to work. So,
Brenna, what's been your experience being new to the aviation insurance realm? What do you see in the culture?
So personally, I think Stacy kind of touched on it. So from my office, I would say it's very much a family environment. So when I interviewed, I spoke with two people primarily. So my boss and then another woman who has been with our office for quite some time. And both of them, when they interviewed me, like we were just having a conversation. You know, they just wanted to know, what are your goals? What are, you know, what do you see yourself doing? You know, what are your skills? And it was more, and what they told me is they said, Brenna, we can teach you the aviation side and we can teach you the insurance side. And they said, but what we can't do is we can't teach you to work with our team. And so they're like, if you feel like you can come in here and you can work with our team and you can click and fit in, they said, everything else will fall into place. And I think that's very true. It's a small industry. And frankly, it's an industry that wants new people. And that's kind of what I've seen as well, just so much encouragement. And there's been so much opportunity and talk about opportunity. Because frankly, I mean, a lot of people in our industry, you know, kind of the people who are the baseline of this are getting to retirement age. So our industry, we're looking for good people, and they want people that are going to stay. They're going to say, okay, how can we support you and make sure that you help in the development of our business? So, I mean, that is it. I think it's a teamwork, you know, it's a work hard, play hard mentality. Like, we all come together, and if you have something, you might have those longer days, but it's not required. And, you know, everyone says, hey, you know what, you know, it's 5 o'clock, go home to your families. So, I mean, it really is. It is a very family-like, and I would say a very supportive culture, as opposed to, I think, because this is technically the third job I've had outside of college. And it's just not the same. The other two jobs I had, it was very corporate. It was very like, you know, clock in, leave, but there wasn't that teamwork aspect that I think you find from being in this type of industry.
Great. Thanks, Brenna.
Lee, I was going to have to ask, Lee, you're in a different type of environment because you're in an airline environment.
Yes.
How's the culture there different from perhaps the people on the insurance providing side when you're the client?
I mean, I'll say it's never bad to be a client. I have built some fantastic relationships with Stacy over the years, with Chris when Chris was my underwriter. Sorry, Brenna, you don't do my business. But you know, one of the amazing things about the job is who I meet and how I get around to meet these people. The story of JetBlue is what I'm selling. So, you know, I'll go out and talk to people about who we are and what we're doing. I love what I do. And, you know, the culture of JetBlue is a big piece of that. So I wouldn't be able to stand in front and say, hey, you know, this is who we are. We want you to put your money up on our behalf if I really didn't feel strongly about what we're doing. Now, there's ups and downs, of course, but that's any job, any company, any family, right? So we fall into that same aspect. But it's you know, again, it's this job and this field has provided some really unique opportunities, and I'll bet all of the other folks on the panel can tell you, you know, I grew up, you know, lower middle class, and if I told you some of the places that I've traveled and eaten and seen all through my work connections, it's unbelievable. You know, I go through Europe twice a year to meet all these different underwriters and folks, just to make sure we have that correct relationship built. And, you know, that is absolutely the best part of the job.
Great. Thank you, Lloyd.
I have another question waiting from Professor Zarb, and it's one on behalf of our students. And I think both Stacy and Brenna alluded to it. The question is, what characteristics other than academic qualifications do you look for in a student wishing to join the insurance part of the aviation aerospace industry? And actually, I'm going to ask you to speak to the academic mindset as well, the skills and knowledge on the academic side and the non.
Yeah, so I'll start this one off. So the first thing I think everybody needs to understand, right? There is not some like instant course that you take and you have all the knowledge about insurance that you need to have a successful career. It is very much an on-the-job training type of industry. So, I think somebody alluded to it earlier, in the aviation world, in an ideal setting, and if you're at Embry-Riddle, you're an ideal setting, you have the aviation background, right? Because that's a passion that Embry-Riddle people share. And so it's much easier for any of our organizations to train somebody who knows the aviation, and then all we have to do is teach the insurance. So, right, insurance is always taught on the job. Aviation, could be taught on the job. It obviously is much better when you come with that as something that you're passionate about in your life. So that's kind of at a higher level. When you think about it at the academic level, I think the most important thing is, right, the ability to particularly speak well and write well are two very, very important things. But the most important thing in my mind is, and this is something that's really cuts across all academic areas, is the people who are most successful in this industry have an innate interest and curiosity about whatever they're working on, right? So, I know when we're looking at people to hire, regardless of level, the most important thing we're actually looking at my organization is the person an intellectually curious person? If they're not, we lose interest very fast. Right? You really need to be people who want to kind of peel back the onion and understand what's the client's real issues, what are the variable situations that they could get into, and then how does that translate into what product we need to find for them or sell to them. And that's all stuff that's it's not okay, this client needs X every time, and next client also needs X, right? Every client, every situation in this industry, and most specialized industries are very different. So it's that intellectual curiosity that we find the most interesting, which Dr. Zarba, I suspect that's not a perfect answer because it's not very specific, but it is it's very high level, but I do think it's probably the most important aspect for all people coming into the industry to be successful. So I don't know if any of the other panelists have any thoughts on that, but if anybody does, feel free to jump in.
Chris, I'll kind of piggyback off what you said. I agree, because I think that being in this industry, it's ever evolving. So I think you're right, that intellectual curiosity is so important. And really, like from my experience, drive, this is an industry that you're going to come in and you're right, you're going to learn a lot of the insurance on your own. And a lot of that just takes initiative. It's just saying, okay, let me take a look at this contract, this policy. And you're like, let me just dig into it, because you don't know what you don't know. So it's saying, hey, I just need to take the time, and understanding how you learn is very big here too. And just being very detail oriented. You're going to be going through, and from my side personally, like part of what I do is when I get a policy in, I check it for certain parameters to make sure it's good to go out to my clients. And that's a really big part of what I do, is making sure that that document is correct. So just going through and looking and making sure that what you negotiated is on there is so good. And it just takes, like I said, someone who is very driven and wants to learn, like Chris said, and wants to continue and push forward in their career. So, I was a psych major. So again, there's really no class, or I know that some people can take a risk management course, but it's really it just comes for how good of a worker you are and how much do you want to push in your career.
No, thank you, Brana.
Lee or Stacy, what do you look for when you're hiring?
I spoke to it a little bit, but being an insurance underwriter really does take, like Brenna said, a detail-oriented person. I'm most of my days are spent on the computer reviewing accounts, loss runs. Got to get into the nitty gritty of everything. But then I also spend a lot of time on the phone with brokers or out in front of brokers or clients. So that's where good communication comes in handy. But just drive, like both Chris and Brenna said, and being eager to learn. I, like I already told you, was not a business major, knew nothing about aviation, and I've learned everything I know on the job. And in the 15 years I've been in the industry, have gone from an underwriting assistant, entry-level position to vice president. So just eager to learn and work hard and play hard.
Well, what I will say is, I think, I agree with what everybody was saying here on what's one of the most important things to have here. But I think some of the folks up there are also selling themselves short. I know a large part of what Stacy does is, taking these numbers of payrolls and employee counts and putting them through databases and crunching these numbers for it. So there is a bunch of math that goes along with this, as well as where they come up with the rates to price this. So you have professional negotiators that you're looking at up here, as well as with the relationships and understanding the math behind it. Coming out of the underwriting world myself, I'm buying insurance for JetBlue, but if someone puts a price up in front of me, I want to understand, is this a good price or a bad price? So in my mind, I'm trying to figure that out with my math skills, and to say, all right, yes, I think this is fair before I walk in there. So there's a bit that goes into it. Unfortunately, there is not, just there are majors that you can have a risk management degree. They're usually not aviation related. So again, I go back to what Chris was saying. It's a little easier to teach the insurance to an aviator than aviation to an insurer. So I think that's, with all that, it kind of hits in there. A lot of experience that comes to get into the client side doesn't typically happen right out of college, because most risk management departments are not the reason that a company exists, right? So if you think about the insurance companies like Chris and Stacy's company, they are the salespeople to sell insurance. That's their main drive, is to have underwriters to sell the product and claims handlers to pay for it at the end. You need, folks like Brenna to bring that to market, bring the clients to the market. You can generally have junior, and that's all their companies are around for. So you have a trail of folks from right out of school to all the way up to very senior levels. When you start getting into the client side risk management departments, we're usually of a company that does something, and that something is not a risk management department. So in essence, what I'm saying, read between the lines, we are a drain on the system. So our departments are always very small. And when those positions open up, it's not typical that we can hire in a very junior level. We need to hire in with folks that are have some experience in there. So we would look for, so if I'm hiring someone, I might look for someone like a Brenna. Stacy's too senior, should be way too expensive for me to sit on the team. But and that's kind of where we would find that expertise.
Thank you. I like that. Gives both perspectives of the positions. I love that. So I'm going to take a technical question and put it out here from Dr. Adhikari. How is advancement in technology, particularly AI, influencing the insurance industry, be it from the buy, sell, or middleman perspective? So artificial intelligence, how is it impacting what you do?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start on the sell side, right? technology is allowing underwriting organizations to have a much deeper insight into customers' behaviors, right? And so if you think about it, telematics is the very kind of typical one that people think about. And if you relate it to your personal life, a lot of you may have telematics on your automobile that translate into how you buy your auto insurance. And in essence, that is that straight out of the aerospace industry, where they're collecting data on your driving behavior, which, you know, at an airline would be the equivalent of a FAIRCO program, and then using that information to determine whether you're a good driver, bad driver, or average driver, which then translates into the price that you end up paying. And so that's becoming more and more common. We actually have a product that we sell at our organization that is specific to the transportation network companies, which would be the Ubers and the Lyfts and all the smaller ones out there, that provides insurance based on the information coming off of the driver's phone, based on what they're doing when. So they're looking for people to pick up, they're on their way to pick up people, or they actually have customers in the car. And we sell an insurance product that is driven by their behavior and the period that they're driving in. And so that's a very unique product, and that's completely technology based. And so I think you'll continue to see that grow across all aspects of the insurance industry. But I think the aviation industry has been using that technology probably longer than most. And, you know, it doesn't specifically translate into the price, because aviation is such a complicated risk that, as Lee will tell you, it's just the ante into the game, right? So if JetBlue didn't use technology to monitor their flight crews, they probably would have trouble buying insurance, right? That's kind of a required piece of the aviation industry today. So it's here, it's been around, and it's getting bigger.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that one? Okay, we'll take another question. Any impact of this one comes from Dr. Choi. Any impact of the global pandemic on airline insurance industry? Specifically, how has this event changed the way you measure or view risks?
Lee,
My
that's Dr.
faculty have tough
all over.
questions.
That's all over Lee.
Me? Well, from my perspective, yes. It changed our, I mean, our risk did not change. What we do is not change between, COVID shutting down and then speeding back up again, and then shutting down and speeding back up again. The results were different. What we saw out of it was a lot easier to shut an airline down than it was to wake it up. I'll be curious to hear what Brenna and Stacy say, because I'm only looking at my piece of the pie. They have a much larger view into the industry to be able to say what they see. I could tell you from our perspective, we were dinging an awful lot more aircraft than we had in the past. Now, they were very minor, thankfully, just because we had so many new people in job moving our aircraft around. And one thing that I always found kind of interesting and crazy about the airline industry is you have your least educated, most transient work group and least professional, because they're going, it's not, it's a job versus a career, people handling your most expensive asset on a daily basis. So you have your ground crew moving a $75 million aircraft that you're paying this person $15 an hour. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but that's our industry. So when you have all these folks that have been on long-term leave, and then all of a sudden you bring them back, they're not used to the routine. They were getting hurt by, hurting themselves, as well as doing a little bit of dinging and banging of our aircraft, which, just makes for expensive delays. Thankfully, nothing big happened. But so yeah, that it definitely changed what was going on, and there was another also a very the industry got whacked pretty hard. Everybody parked their airplanes around the entire world, and what was it, Roswell, New Mexico had massive hailstorms. Like 150 to 200 airplanes were damaged pretty significantly for the industry. So how is that impacting the industry? We'll come back to how does that impact JetBlue's premiums, even though none of our aircraft were there. The concept of insurance is to take a little bit of premium from the masses to pay for the few losses that occur.
Stacy, any thoughts on the comp world?
Yeah, so from the aviation workers' comp world, I mean, there were probably at least 9 months where we saw premiums decreasing because payrolls were decreasing. Companies were laying off employees or furloughing them, and the bureaus that regulate workers' compensation came up with a code for these furloughed employees where we didn't get premium if they're being paid, even if they're being paid and at home, we didn't get premium for those employees. So premiums decreased. Luckily, we were able to write some new business, so we still met our budget for 2020. But on the flip side, we didn't see nearly as many claims either. We did see several COVID-related claims, but depending on the state, they may have been accepted or may not have been. So I would say overall, profitability was about the same, but premiums and losses were both a little bit less.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so as we go to the last 10 minutes, I want to make certain we have a chance. Now we've got more questions than we can answer here, but I want to put these last two out. Huh?
Speed round.
Speed round. Pick a question to answer. All right. So you can choose to answer. Are there internships available in aviation and insurance? And if so, how do you find them or get them? My favorite, what has been your most interesting insurance underwriting case to date and why? And then what are the last one to choose, with labor shortages affecting the market, how is this impacting hiring and recruitment within the aviation insurance industry? So internships, crazy cases you've seen from an underwriting sense, or attracting and recruiting in a tight labor market. Your choice for your last question.
So I'll take the first one, and hopefully we can hit all three quickly. So I'm going to take labor shortages and hiring for 1,000. So it's interesting. So what I would just say to people is don't believe everything that's on the news. Right, there are certain sectors of the world that are experiencing labor shortage. We have seen tremendous candidates all throughout COVID. We probably hired 10% of our workforce every year just through normal retirements and growth. And we didn't have any issues filling positions over COVID. Which was very interesting and not what we would have predicted. But I found it more intriguing that people were willing to change careers, particularly mid-career people in the middle of a pandemic. But we found tons of people and found, honestly, I thought we found better talent over the pandemic than we would in a non-pandemic environment. So that was, again, very unexpected. There's a lot of hiring going on, right? The world's opening up, so I think it's a really strong environment for people to find jobs. But I don't want people to think that like companies are unable to find people, right? It's still a competitive market. You have to put your best foot forward, but there's definitely opportunities out there.
That's great. Brenna, we'll go to you. Which question do you want to end with today?
So I will end with the internship question. So yes, so I know, so from us with AssuredPartners Aerospace, we do have an internship program. If you have any questions, email me. You can get my information from Shannon. We had a summer intern this past summer, and we've got 7 offices across the United States. And I believe that she was based out of our Wichita, Kansas office. And I think she was there all summer. From my understanding, it went very well. And then, I mean, just touching on what Chris said with the hiring, I know all of our offices here in all 7 locations are hiring and are eager for good talent to come in. So again, if you have any questions about that, let me know. I can send you a little breakdown, but no, we are absolutely looking for people. And if you are interested in internships, we have a really great program here. So please let me know.
And we've certainly sent several interns to AssuredPartners and had several alum hired as well. So Lee, what question do you want to tackle?
Ooh, I guess I'll take the underwriting one. It's been a few years, but you're running across some awesome companies, and well, first of all, JetBlue and any airline is just an amazingly complex operation, which is one of the fun parts about it. Is I'm dealing with building new facilities, whether it's a hangar or a terminal, or I'm dealing with marketing contracts and all the talent that they might come in for a concert. There was times there we were doing concerts in the middle of our JFK terminals, insuring buildings, insuring the aircraft, the people. It's really complex, and in that regard, it's always fun in that regard. But when I was underwriting, one of the favorite ones that I did was a Southern Co-op, I think was the name of the company. I don't even know if they're around anymore, but they used to do logging. So they would they would grow trees for pulp, and they would fertilize with these llama helicopters, which were high weight, high elevation also, but these things were old, and they just ran these things, and just it was always amazing because they would do it in the middle of nowhere, and if they crashed, you were stuck out in nowhere. It was really inexpensive, weird type of an operation that you just didn't really know. Some of the government contracts were weird too. California Microwave, which was, you needed a top security to get to see them. They wouldn't let you in. You didn't really know everything that you're underwriting. They would say, well, we can't tell you this, but we're using this plane we have these airplanes and they're taking pictures, so it's just like, it was some real black box stuff that they were developing. So you never know, and you try and figure it out along the way.
I think that had to be fun, putting a price on something that you couldn't know.
Yes.
Stacy, what's your favorite question of this last group?
Well, I was planning to do the internship question as well. We do have internships within aviation in the Atlanta office during the summer. And then we also have a professionals program. This isn't an internship, but we hire people right out of college, and they're able to travel to New York. I think it wasn't around when I started, but I think they go to New York 3 or 4 times. They meet with the senior leadership team. They learn all about the ins and outs of the company, not only aviation, but the different lines that we write. And it's a really good way to learn about the industry as a whole, the insurance industry as a whole. So you can tell them to email me, provide my email address.
Well, it sounds to me like the opportunities are absolutely there, that they're difficult to describe in some cases because of their complexity, but it makes your days interesting and you never quite know what's going to happen. And I think that means, it sounds to me like you've all are either beginning exciting careers or well into exciting careers and something that you really enjoy. I know when I joined Embry-Riddle, I never gave any thought to the aviation insurance sector until someone said it. And I kind of had this, oh yeah, that makes sense, aha moment. Somebody's got to underwrite all those airplanes that are flying around up there. And so I've really enjoyed learning from all of you and our other partners throughout. So thank you, Chris. As we conclude, or do you have any final comments as our commentator?
Well, one, I want to thank all the members of the audience. We look forward to doing this in person next year. But obviously technology has allowed us to do a lot of things over the last 18 months and get more people engaged. So thanks for taking an hour out of your afternoon. I think on behalf of the entire Business Leadership Council, we appreciate your energy and involvement, and that's why all of us love to stay involved in the university the way we do. And we look forward to interacting with you and sharing as much of our knowledge and guidance as we possibly can. So please avail yourself of that resource and reach out through Dr. Gibson's office if anybody across the different industry sectors can be helpful to you. I know the group would jump at the opportunity to speak with you.
Huge thanks to everyone, especially you, Stacy, Brenna, Lee, and Chris. Audience, for my students here, I hope to see you in a few minutes. Everyone have a great evening. And if you're on campus, we look forward to seeing you at tomorrow's panel on sales and business development, which will be in person in the student union. Take care, everyone, and be good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Great job.
Bye-bye. Thank you.